Hey there, it's Alex. Doing another Alex James Hislop diary entry. This is January 21st, 2019. A psychic medium, speak to spirits. And, this is just sort of a rundown of the week. I'm going to be doing these, I think, weekly, but I do more than that at times. So yeah, it was from 14th to the 21st. I already did a video for last week's. So on the 14th, I got the 15th anyway. So yeah, I remember that day. Different themes: writing, conflict management, heightening, deheightening processes, absurdities, combining with certain spirits, being sort of. So you think about like group entities and individualism and that sort of thing. So it's that sort of idea that you can combine consciousness in different kinds of ways. You think about different kinds of ways to live life. And I think that was one of the things that was going on that day, on the 15th anyway. 14th is, I think, archived. Yeah, just a gentle touching. So yeah, that sort of thing. You don't want to jump. That sort of thing was left behind. I felt like I was moving upwards spiritually. You think about the event, you think about that sort of thing where energies are moving upwards, becoming lighter. And I kind of felt like that sort of stuff was happening around me at times. And, that whole thing is definitely a bunch of different videos, because I think that there's multiple kinds of culture within the confines of what we're calling the event, new earth, new events, extension process, that sort of stuff, the mend, the rise, a bunch of different things like that. And I think that there's multiple other ones and multiple within, those kinds of names, different kinds of mandates pertaining to erasing of energies, things like that. Within the confines of these sort of write downs, these, the Alex James of diary entries, there is let knows in regards to, certain kinds of brimstone action at times. There has been let knows of, certain spirits who've been attacked, certain groupings that are potentially battling out there and fighting. So there is sometimes that sort of thing. Had the idea of doing certain kinds of advocations for comic technology and things like that. So there was this idea that somehow that with advocations is that you could create. And so it's that sort of idea that you put an advocation into play and that there might be certain things behind the scenes that are being created from that. So you start to think of like, okay, well, what if there is that spiritual sort of element around us? What if there's thousands of spirits around you? And as a psychic medium who speaks to them daily, I feel like that is the case of this. I can open channel on video. I can speak them within my mind. And of course, the psychic activity being feng shuied around me, being changed to look a certain way. At times, there has been spirits who've been, messing about in regards to that, do the mess around, that sort of thing, where, pretty much just, changing it up and, doing their thing. But, there really is, when the camera's off, there is psychic activity that looks a certain way. And I get it within the confines of certain societies, just like, what we've got enough to deal with right now. At the same time, I know how I feel about it, specifically in regards to the psychic activity, and especially when you go to those sort of things where it's like, psychic medium, what do you mean? What's that? It's that sort of thing where in certain spirit culture, and in some of it, where some of them look at it in a certain kind of way, and might be there for, different kinds of reasons. And yeah, within the confines of that, certain spirits going to use that, take it out of context, but they're going to potentially do that anyhow. Yes, still feel a certain way on it for a reason. With that being said, it's that sort of thing where you could put an advocation in regards to, for example, smell vision. People have been talking about smell vision for years, right? It's that sort of thing where you put you put something to your face when you're watching a commercial and be able to smell it. Imagine not just being able to see visually or hear, being able to touch, tactile, smell, taste. Those are the other three. And there probably is, I think there very much is. And there's open channeling spirit telling you that it is. There is. That's open channeling spirit. That was an open channeling spirit right there. saying that it is, that there is that sort of thing out there. It's that sort of, in the physical. Yes, in the physical. Yes, they said yes in the physical. That is the truth. The spirit, certain spirits say that it does exist within the physical. It's still a decent. It's still a let know. I feel like that is the case. The extent of imagination and that sort of thing can let us know that there is potentially things out there. But to have confirmation from spirit around us matters greatly. It is one of those things that's for scientists who are studying this sort of stuff, specifically when they get to a certain point in time, when they start to realize that channeling and psychic information can be utilized in a scientific way, that it is corroboration to a certain degree, and, even within the confines of knowing and understanding that spiritual lies exist, that certain, in certain psychic process there can be lies, and on others potentially not. That sort of thing where you have a certain kind of energy placement, and there's no way you're going to be able to lie, and then that sort of thing. And of course, that within the confines of channeling and asking certain questions, you can see why that would be difficult in regards to being able to answer certain questions, specifically, sensitive information. But, I think that there's still certain ways that, you should be able to do that. And I think that can be utilized as an excuse at times, not necessarily what we're going for. And I'm advocating for my communications to be set the way Main Spirit Guides indicate. With that being said, I am going to read the disclaimers. I'm Alex James Hislop, Main Spirit Guides. Main current information from the light takes priority in regards to what Main the way Main the light. Main current information from the light regarding what Main in regards to myself and others from what they chose for us in regards to this portion of the disclaimers takes priority. How we cap the way we cap it, or the way we cap it in the light, the way we cap it in the light. We kept current information for what they chose for the AJHD, Alex James Hislop diary entry content, January 21st, 2019 information that we cap it, as well as other information takes priority. How we cap it in the light, the way we cap it in the light. Any grammatical errors, etc., defined by cap within this content, etc., defined by cap that main cap indicated can be clarified by main cap's information and should not deter from the information within this content, etc., defined by main cap, the way main cap indicating light. For myself and others, defined by main cap, all that is the dimensions, especially far away light, as well as what main cap indicated are defined by Main Spirit Guides in the light, the way Main Spirit Guides indicating light. Spirit Guides chain of command is fully defined by Main Spirit Guides in the light, the way Main Spirit Guides indicated in the light. I and others defined by main camp are advocating for what main camp chose for us to advocate in regards to this content, etc., defined by cap, the way main camp indicating light. Light, and those that main cap indicating light do what main cap indicating in regards to this content, the way main cap indicating lights. So yeah, disclaimers. It's one of those things I feel can be beneficial. If there is thousands of spirits, potentially millions or billions watching and sometimes interacting for some. Then it can be, it can be useful to a certain degree. With that being said, I feel like there are those who don't do disclaimers, and I don't feel like it should affect them at all. I feel like if you don't want to do that sort of thing, then, I think you're covered either way, regardless of whether you do it or not. I think there is a lot of seemingly, I think that there is a lot of, Main Spirit Guides information getting through to be able to protect. But I do feel like those in front of the scenes shouldn't necessarily have to put certain things into play, even when it becomes sort of commonplace to a certain degree. No, not at all. But yeah, with that being said, I don't think that people should let it rule their lives to a certain extent. Anyhow, I and others from Main Spirit Guides are advocating for the information regarding those that Main Spirit Guides needed to be displayed where Main Spirit Guides needed, Main Spirit Guides needed. With that being said, yeah, other dimensional things at times that I've noticed here and there. So, creation. We were talking about creation, being able to create advocations or other things too. Inspiration, creativity. There's other things too that you can do. It's not just advocations, but it's also by way of doing certain things, like writing a story. All of a sudden, spirits around you can make that into a film. They could do a whole bunch of different things with that. Imagine you're able to do certain things to be able to create innovation, invention, discovery, even by way of certain kinds of mechanisms and supporting kind of things. The one thing about advocations, disclaimers, justifications, that sort of stuff, is it's a great supporting thing. It really is. There's things like that where if you come up with certain advocations, things like that, and all of a sudden as you create, as you come up with different things in regards to the spirit that could be around you, that sort of thing where it's like discoveries, spiritual discoveries, And you just doing a couple advocations supporting here and there is an accent that really causes, it's one of those things I think certain spirit look at and think that, yeah, that is amazing. Because there is heroes, Alex. Yes, there is. And there's also villains. And I know there's from you guys are asking for prevention in from some of the things that you guys indicated pertaining to this marketing application, etc. Components regards the way you guys indicated. As you can see, there is a little bit of upsetness at times in regards to certain things. You know, it's that sort of thing where you try to do in a certain way, try to get somebody's upset, but I would ignore it. I would just ignore some of the bullshit in regards to that sort of stuff, because I can tell you this much, that's the real truth of it. The real truth of it is that they are there, they are around, and they do care. And regardless, they do care about some of the smaller issues too. As you can see, they still show up. And because there's a certain bit of a turmoil going on behind the scenes. There's a little bit of supposedly an upsetness, and when there really doesn't need to be. That's how I feel about it. That's what it is. Yeah. Anyway, a bit of an upsetness behind the scenes, but it's one of those things where you can come up with certain kinds of things to accent the spirit around you. So, for example, one of the things is I started noticing that when you read comics, that there's potentially Harry Potter-esque kind of stuff going on. That's one of the things. So imagine moving photos. Imagine frames within video. Imagine moving, within the video itself, video within frames of the video, that sort of stuff. Imagine different kinds of content experiences attached to comics. Imagine having a comedic kind of presence to certain comics, doing like a little side thing where you could put into play certain, comics, comedians, that sort of stuff. There's a play on words in regards to the spirit love, I think, to a certain extent, or I do. Yeah, and I think today's, in today's the 21st, so I think one of the topics of today has been that sort of thing is, for some, a certain thing into play where, if there's, something happening behind the scenes in a certain kind of way, then maybe, doing certain stuff. For example, drinking enough water to make sure that your counterparts are safe, or, if you're going to sit down in your chair and there's a dimensional, existence or presence there, that may be taking the extra second to instead of, sitting down. Within the context of that sort of thing, there's a lot of that sort of thing, which is, ends up being just a lot of people, setting certain things up. So then, if you do that sort of thing, I think at times it can turn into that. But, also at times, specifically for certain spirits, beings, etc., performance guides out there, it's been sort of that anyhow. You sit down in your chair, if you don't say, excuse me, you're going to be, potentially sitting on somebody. And, in regards to my, so because I say excuse me, because I know that there's sometimes spirits and dimensional existences that are affected potentially by the physical. But there's that sort of thing where it's like, if you eat that extra bite, or, if you don't wipe the right way, or one of those, it just turns into, something. And it exists where certain spirits kind of, I think, feed. Well, some are trying to survive. There's literally survival. If you attach something to it, it's like all of a sudden you don't have to go and hurt somebody. You could just go there. It's that sort of thing that says, okay, so instead of people getting attacked and harmed to a certain extent spiritually by potentially negative beings and immoral beings, instead doing it to someone who, while doing it in a less shittier way to someone else, which can still be kind of shitty. It's that sort of thing where it's like, it still does matter. Imagine that, someone who can do it, who's going to be doing potentially a lot worse in regards to picking on you or beating the shit out of you, decides, instead of, doing some, attack or harm or violence in such a way where, we would look at it and say, that's some concentration, that's some mass murder sort of stuff. They end up, scaling it back and beating the shit out of somebody, yeah, but then you scale that back again, and it could be that sort of stuff where it's not necessarily getting the shit beaten out of them, so they say. It's some of that stuff where, I mean, it's within the confines of certain actions. There's been that sort of stuff that's kind of like, instead of doing this, let's pick on them in a certain kind of way, which you complain about it in a certain kind of dimensional existence, and they look at it and just, laugh, because, people dealing with people getting attacked and harmed daily, when they're looking for like, hey, that's better. That's bupkis. I'd rather that than having to have to get attacked every day, feel certain kinds of pain. You roll it back, and Yeah, and that's it. It's one of those things where it's like it just became acceptable or accepted in a certain kind of way, and then within the confines of that sort of excuse in regards to some of it, and it's not one of those though. Okay, okay, change up. Yes. Anyway, I'm just changing up right here. There's certain kind of spiritual mechanisms I'm able to do, able to change up. You think about a different kind of belief, trust, forgiveness. That's some of them, but there's other stuff too. There's, yeah, hold. That's one of them. Sure, there is. Um, yes, there is. I can still feel it. Certain kind of highlighting, I'm able to feel like it's a certain kind of light. I think to a certain extent that I'm able to somewhat emit. Being able to change your light up, then spirits around you being able to change your light up to a certain extent, to have it reflect certain kinds of things. It's one of those. That's a personal one, isn't it? You don't know why. And of course, it's that nitpickish to make them go a little nitpickish, and that sort of thing. I mean, because that's the shit of it here, That's the real true. Hmm. Certain, certain spirits. Okay. Anyway, so it's that sort of idea. I was talking about technology. So it's that idea to put into place certain kind of advocations in regards to comic technology or that sort of thing. Imagine being able to read a comic and then being able to experience the imagine being able to like a holodeck program, that sort of stuff. Different kinds of games. Imagine being able to play a whole video game in another dimension while you read that comic. That sort of stuff. That was in the 14th. Oh, yes. Sticking together during certain moments before having to jump in, accomplishing what we need to do to guaranteeing safety, matching what we need to accomplish, and doing it as a team, no one left behind. Yeah, and there was some of the there was meetings that day. I remember that was probably a little bit different. There was something that happened on a spiritual level, in a certain kind of way where everybody was kind of like sitting there like, yeah, there's a few people missing here, Bob. What the smoke? What the smoke? Freaking heck, that's brilliant. What the smoke? I like that. Team. Oh yeah, themes. Yeah, teamwork, higher planes, lower planes, level differences, tactic authorities, lack thereof comedy. Comedy was affected this day to a certain extent. Lower plane levels, plane level power impact. Yeah, it was very very good. The 14th. Yep, very good. It was good stuff. Soothsaying was interesting as well. Two of Cups and Upside Down Moon with the number 5 overshadowing it. Dimensional cards I have. I forget what they're called. Fractal Arts. Yeah, that one. It made sense by the end of the day too on the 5. I think to a certain extent. Very good. Very good. It's the 14th. So light, far light, setting that makes guys needed. Continue to do what makes guys needed regarding this content. The way it makes guys needed. I want you to display the information that makes guys needed pertaining to the past 7 days that makes guys needed in the ways that makes guys needed. So yeah, the 15th. What's it doing on the 15th? Notes. Yeah, it's Antigo Bay. Yeah. A little bit antagonistic sort of stuff happening before I went to ones. Yeah. Experience wanted me to be antagonistic and stable. Okay, yeah. Well, I don't remember. That's the thing. But it wasn't okay. 15th felt attacked earlier in the head area. I defended myself, trying to get someone off of me. Yes, that was where I felt attacked in the word center sort of way, and I sort of freaked out at certain spirits. I and others from my guides are advocating for the no more arguments advocations that Minister Guides needed pertaining to January 15th, 2019 to be displayed where guys needed, the way guys needed. I do apologize. It was that sort of thing where I started, I felt like my perception in regards to English was being affected to a certain extent, being able to understand. And I sort of like freaked out a bit, to a certain degree. And maybe it's one of those things that's needed where people needed me to freak out. At times, I kind of feel like it's not the way to go, and I've been trying to work through it. Today, I had a bit of still multiple. It's one of those things where it's still lingering to a certain extent. I've had 2 or 3, 4 days regarding this January 2019 where it's been a bit antagonistic. I didn't write this one down in the no more arguments section for a reason. because I felt like I was defending myself to a certain degree. Now, the way I defended myself may have been not necessarily the way I wanted to go, and isn't necessarily the way I want to go, but I'm only doing it the way my guides indicated. It's not there as an excuse. It's there in case I lose control. It's case in the, as a psychic medium, as a being, a regular person, you have power. You're able to do certain mechanisms. You have the abilities to affect a lot of different things. One of which has to do with placing energies. Imagine if you can place energies in a way where you could see the energies and discern it and see it with your eyes. Imagine if you were able to heal yourself by way of energy placement. So we, technically speaking, have a certain kind of magic. A certain kind of magic to a certain degree. I've already said it. I want my communications to be set the way my guides indicated. And light, far light, setting my guides indicated. Can you know that we have been trying to hold it down in a certain kind of way, especially in regards to immorality promotion. Certain spirits been saying that it ain't, but as I said earlier, and the day before, that information I think is vital. I think it's needed to be known. Both to a certain, the ones that means guys indicated, the information that means guys indicated, the way means guys indicated, light, far light, setting means guys indicated, light, misleading, meaning, etc. Performance or guides. Can you do what means guys indicated regarding what means guys indicated regarding this marking application, etc. Performance or guides. The way means guys indicated. Now, as much as we want some people to believe that it's a bit of a personal, I don't know that it is. That's what's messed up about it. It's that sort of thing where I looked at certain stuff and I'm like, wait a second, immorality, it makes no sense. It does, but it doesn't. It really, that's also it. I know that people have been trying to say that it is, or a part of that, but light, far light, setting limits, guys. Can you look at the reasons why it's not about immorality and why it is, and compare, and can you weigh in on the situations and conflicts that makes guys indicated with that in mind, the way it makes guys indicated? You don't know why it is. I still have faith that it isn't, and that's the case of it. Well, we'd rather it be. That's an open channeling spirit saying that. We'd rather it be is an open channeling spirit. Oh, well, that might not have been the spirit. This might not be what they wanted to have said, but no, not that moment, good sir. Okay, that was the real, yeah. Good for you. Oh, good. Anyway, sorry. There's sometimes talk of immorality at times, certain spirits promoting that sort of thing. I realized that there was immorality culture around me, that sort of stuff exists. And to a certain, it was something that I had to sort of talk about, based partially, off of, thinking that sort of stuff had potentially existed. I and others from its regards are out of the Society of Light, T-Cell, and Avidar that means guys think it, my teacher, to be protected, the way guys think it, former teacher for what's acceptable, but I'm looking for soulist mysticism to be protected, the way guys needed. It's that sort of thing where it taught me how to love every day. You can love. Love is a real emotion. You can promote it daily. Been promoting it daily. Been loving daily. That is the true. Been doing other things too. Manifesting today. Doing thinking. Pure thinking debris. Been changing up. Pure thinking. So imagine having thought mechanisms, right? You think about certain kind of numbers, being able to do certain kind of mind things. It's not necessarily all the same mechanism. It can be in certain setups, but it's not necessarily so. There's different kinds of thoughts. There's run-on thoughts that seem more natural and smoother. There's ones that are done in a certain kind of way. There's even ways to potentially communicate psychically with those thought mechanisms within my mind. I'm able to speak with certain spirits. The other kind of thought mechanisms, the ones you kind of do math with, not necessarily just your mind, because you don't necessarily always speak it in your mind to solve math problems. You just think about it, right? Not necessarily the same mechanism as the mind. And light, far light, and that's one. See, that's the problem with it. That's the case of this. That was also it. Well, of course, I might know this from its guys are adding for the entertainment that makes guys need to be protected. When its guys need light, far light, setting limits, guys need can you display the advocations that makes guys needed in regards to Alex James Hislop and others from its guides in regards to the anti-caps that makes guys needed, as well as immorality and the banners that makes guys needed, and dimensional existences that makes guys needed, the way it makes guys needed. I am relying, on my other dimensional selves that remain spirit guides indicated. At the same time, I have done, tethers down here in the physical that do exist, that do, have those sort of advocations in play. And this isn't just in regards to myself. This isn't just in regards to me. It's in regards to others too. And I'm not looking for you to get attacked either, Anyway, so yeah, it felt like there was something happening on the 15th in a certain kind of like shelter and emergency supplies, resources. There was something like, there was a 911 sort of thing happening, and, I wish it was okay, there was defending any gear. I might for gears, gear, and screen displays, that sort of thing was happening. Different kinds of ways to throw up information. Imagine being in like a circle with certain spirits. Imagine throwing up like a certain kind of display that just kind of displayed, and there was like a bunch of different like holograms and things like that being displayed. Different kinds of technology, displaying certain kinds of things, languages, different kinds of languages, things like that. Fairness and understanding that there are not necessarily trying to. Yeah, the idea of trying to advance and accelerate certain things off of my actions, that I'm going to be, they'll let know that, that sort of thing where they try to make, where spirits and beings try to make, certain beings to be more famous than they seemingly are, and then, to try and achieve fame in a certain spot is a little bit more difficult. Seemingly, there's a way to approach that at times that the spirit around me have just been screwing with in regards to myself at times. So, I mean, there is that sort of thing. And of course, people say that later on, but really, for some at times, I don't know if it has anything to do with it. There is that sort of thing at times. I think in that one, I kind of feel like it's just rubbish. I mean, you just left that one alone, I feel. With that being said, because the way it was approached, I think in a certain kind of style, a certain kind of way. Writing, conflict management. Conflict management, again, it's that sort of thing where certain spirits are working against you, and then all of a sudden, anti-camps just get up and leave, and it's like, okay, well, you got to hold it down, or else, someone potentially approaches, and, I don't know. There was also a thing earlier where it was sort of a let know where that sort of approach kind of approaches, and then Alex was kind of sitting there above. I'm wondering if there was psychological defense in regards to myself, and if the moves that I did was what I wanted. Light, forward light, setting them, these guys indicating light, display what these guys indicated regarding it. And light, forward light, setting them, guys indicating light. Protect my photos that guys indicated pertaining to January 15th, 2019, as well as others to find my spirit guides. The way my spirit guides indicated. I'm adding for my photos that guys indicated, as well as my accounts that guys indicated to be protected. The way my guys indicated. This is Alex James Hislop, 44, and others to find my spirit guides saying this. The way my guys indicated. And others to find my spirit guides are advocating for the main spirit guides information of those that the main spirit guides indicated to be displayed. Where are those main spirit guides indicated? The way those main spirit guides and main spirit guides indicated with main spirit guides information regarding this marking application, etc. Compartment spirit guides taking precedence the way main spirit guides indicated. So that relaying right there allows certain spirits, in regards to some of them, to be able to relay certain kinds of information. Others, just it gives that sort of let know that there's that, there's a physical on this physical planet saying that. That matters. It matters greatly. And we don't deserve to be worked against, I feel, to a certain extent. There are those who feel otherwise, and of course, it's that sort of system where it's to try and get people to be argumentative at times. There is that sort of thing where all of a sudden my demeanor and mentality changed. Programming regarding that sort of stuff is potentially at times, in regards to some, influenceable, manipulatable, and all of a sudden you become erratic. And people who've watched this process know they've seen me not talk for like hours, and all of a sudden I just become this chirpy, madman at times, and it's like, and not as much as it's been. People know within the past 2, 3, 4 weeks, it's not nearly as much as it's been. Here and there, a handful of times. There was about 2 or 3 days that I wrote down so far. In regards to January the 15th was sort of one of the one-offs. I kind of grouped all those things, the chirpy kind of things, the jabs and that sort of stuff, in regards to January, and I kind of considered it one day. So that would be, I think, 4 days in total. And it is one of the things was the little jabroni comment in regards to when I was on Metro, and I am sorry regarding that. I wasn't saying it towards any authority. I was just saying it because I was sort of saying it along. There was a spirit who was quoting The Rock, who didn't have anything to do with it. And I'm out for The Rock. That means you guys needed to be protected. That means you guys indicated, as much as I appreciate certain things, people have their own lives to live, and don't deserve to be brought into certain situations. With that being said, it's still appreciative in regards to certain stuff. And there's those times where you argue with spirit. There is, I know all psychics don't. Not a lot of psychics do that, actually. Some do, some don't. I don't know if not a lot of psychics do that. I think that on this physical planet Earth, not a lot of psychics do that. I think some do. I'd love to see some of the other language spirits that you know, the physicals that do argue just in Hindu, just like, you know, even like freaking out, oh no, you know, for freak's sake, really. That's the behind the scenes wording made everything. That was the whole thing. For freak's sake. And that's the thing. That one was not funny at all. Well, that's a behind the scenes wordings. Then it was potentially not mine. I'm going with what Mates for Guides indicated regarding it. It's one of those things, you know. Yeah, throw up the flares. Yeah, I really think so to a certain degree. That's kind of how I feel here. If that's what's going on, you know, whatever you call that. I'm having for another thing I did this week was create sort of a channel kind of book to be able to have automatic write. Well, not a channel book, but, you know, in one of my creativity writing books, you know, some of it might be called morning pages. That there might be that sort of thing. You know, and right now I'm just sort of, you know, I don't know like what I'm doing on that front, but I think I'm kind of utilizing it as, you know, different kinds of all the map. I know that there was some people who do 3 pages, and I kind of have 3, you know, separate booklets that I've been doing that. Some of it's for art, some of it's for concept writing, some of it's for channel writing, things of that nature. I think it can still count towards the morning pages and that sort of stuff. I know some people probably wanted me to do 3 pages, but, you know, I've also been writing, you know, other stuff too. Been focusing on fiction writing, nonfiction writing, multiple, a bit of psychic research here and there, but not as much as I need it to be. I need to be reading more into doing more psychic research. I need to devote an hour a day at least, at the very least, and it's not too much to ask. And I know it's just those, you know, I've been doing a little bit of dream research here and there, but it's basically one of those things to, you know, to kind of just do here and there. But, you know, I run at a time at times. You know, it happens. I apologize. So the 16th. What was I doing on the 16th? The 16th. Let's find it here. There you go. Atrocity Talk. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this was the Master Progression Issue discussion day, and I talk about the Master Progression Issue discussions at times. It's that sort of thing where I talk about certain spirits retrogressing, you know, karmically, karma potentially being a real measurable thing. Imagine if, you know, so yeah, well, not just science. Imagine if, you know, karma was understood to be a real measurable thing, and something that you could see with your eyes. Imagine being able to see your whole body, and, you know, imagine it looking like sort of like a clear cup, and as you did certain actions, that cup got filled. You could see it get filled with different kinds of colors and different kinds of progression. You know, you did a creative thing in the day, and it was just sort of that, it was that burst of thing that the spirits around you needed, and all of a sudden you could see a kind of a feng shui, a certain kind of movement of different kind of systems, spiritual systems at times. And I just drank water, you know, to a certain extent. It's that sort of thing. That's, you know, been at times in regards to my water systems. You know, that let know that there is beings who need water to be able to survive. And, you know, I have drinking water at times and not. You know, I've been hit and miss on it, and at times it's been missed. But, you know, I do try, and it would be interesting to see if I was hydrating, you know, 12 a day. How much do I need to do here? It was like once every hour, man. Holy smoke, half a couple every. Well, that would be why. You're only supposed to be drinking, like, you know, they say, I think, like, you know, 8 to 12 cups a day. I think that is the true. Whatever then. With that being said, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I did do the AJHD Elite Defensives video that day as well, so it was a bit of a double whammy. Bit of a double whammy. And yeah, you know, that's essentially on Mondays I do the Alex James Hislop diary entries, just kind of a recount of the week. The AJHD Daily Defensives is sort of a focus on the defensive aspect of the dailies of the week and that sort of thing. Different kind of themes that are brought up that, you know, I've advocated for. I do have a Peacekeeper Alex Trello account. I did print out the disclaimers, the AJHD Peacekeeper Alex Trello account. That does matter. It's greatly important. Yeah, different stuff here and there, and so like the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday's kind of covered, and then Thursday comes around, and I don't think it's too much of an economic thing. I mean, I got dailies in regards to economic advocations and stuff like that. And even the way my advocations are worded should be fairly enough. Even the cricket's worded fairly decent. With that being said, I and others from its guides are advocating for the safeguards that makes guys indicated to be put into play in regards to the Alex James Hislop diary entries. That remains spirit guides indicated the way means guides indicated. I'm advocating for the skin that makes guides indicated to be protected. That makes guides indicated to piece of skin off, and that's the sort of stuff that I'm talking about. There could be, whole souls incarnate in regards to certain kind of aspects of ourselves. Picking off a piece of skin, that could be one of those things that does matter greatly. And there is tethering too, as well as. Comics. I started reading more comics, as well. And it was sort of let know on that day that, there was this sort of thing that was happening this week. And it was the past week is concentration camp sort of stuff behind the scenes. Yet again, we've had it. We've talked about it on these contents before. And I know some people are like, how would you mean? I'm like, well, imagine overlapping dimensions. Overlapping the physical in multiple kinds of ways. Now imagine some of those overlaps are brimstone. Imagine that some of them promote immorality. They like to promote immorality. They're going to continue to promote immorality. Certain spirits, beings, etc., departments, regards turned dark for a reason. And they don't want to, some don't want to be turned light again. And within the confines of that sort of stuff, there's still that intermingle. Still that intermingle where there's beings of light and beings of dark, and they talk to one another. And it's interesting. And people love it. It became entertainment. People have Facebook status for us, that sort of stuff. They have rape buttons and violent buttons and things like that. You can have custom buttons after you attack somebody. You can make that a custom button. There's gifts, things like that, where people like to do that sort of thing. And that's not really, I don't know if it has. Maybe it has. In some other place, maybe off on the peripherals. Maybe it was this entire, past couple days. Maybe it's been that for someone around this place. That's the kind of thing. A dimensional existence just floating over top. No, not dimensional existence. A place. Part of a dimensional existence floating over top of you, one conversation being had for 2 days, nobody can see it, and then all of a sudden it's revealed. There's things like that. It potentially exists for what's acceptable. And it's been like that sort of thing. It's like, oh, well, I don't remember having that sort of talk in this process. Well, it's like, yeah, you don't. And imagine they thought that it was. Imagine there was a lot of people. It's like, yeah, everyone's just ignoring him. Some people were just saying that. It's like, what the that's kind of the stuff that might, that people have done at times. You'll have two people in a conversation where everyone's supposed to be paying attention. Everyone's just kind of like, doing their own thing. But it's done in a way where it looks like they're kind of like looking a bit. Meanwhile, they're looking at something else that's totally different. And you're sitting there thinking, like, in the conversation, like, what the heck is going on? Anyway. What was some of the applications? Comic rack, pirated items, dancing, handicap, repair, endings, beginnings, content, heightened processes, existence, maintenance, existence, creation, awareness in regards to those that may indicate, try to discern, pertaining defense in regards to those that may indicated, setting up story proceedings without the lights and far relighting of existence without light intervention, light access. Yeah, it's that sort of thing where you can come up with certain advocations in regards to certain things, and that creation thing behind the scenes again. You do certain kinds of disclaimers, advocations. This is the thing. This is the let know of it, is that there is this sort of thing that I've been doing. And it's that sort of thing that says, okay, well, I'm watching a movie, and there was something that was let know after a while, that potentially certain actors or certain people by way of the movie were sometimes, there was sometimes a game happening. It was the same thing when I played, video games. I started noticing there was sometimes, battle happening at times. And that's not always bad. I mean, there was good things too. A lot of decent stuff, a lot of intermingling, a lot of meetings, a lot of positivity. Oh yeah, a lot of that stuff. Yes, there is. If the positive could get a word in here, if we could just chill out and talk all happiness, damn day. And they say that, but that's also it too. We need to be able to have access to that stuff without having to talk about it. By way of creation, we talk about manifesting. We talk about creating our own reality. We talk about that sort of thing. It's a big one. It's huge. It's a big system. It really is. It is. You know it. I mean, we talk about it within the confines of our psychic communities, multiple different kinds. Well, you talk. I'm not saying other systems ain't big either. It's that the economic impact is only supposed to be what means negated by way of what I'm talking. Interestingly enough, on the subject itself, we need to be able to talk about certain things without that sort of things have happening to a certain degree. That's how I feel about it. You can't expect me not to feel that way to a certain extent, good sir. Not my look. Continuing on here, though. Okay, well, seems like someone in the spirit did something. Not me. I'm keeping on moving here. Anyway, on the 17th, and 9 others from its guides are out into the reputational defense in regards to those that may needed to be displayed where needed. Yeah, I came up with another document. Yeah, it was yes, but it was a decent one. I feel to a certain extent. It was the AJHD reputational defense creation, which is there to alleviate certain kind of decencies to a certain extent. But back to that sort of talk about movies, and yeah, so I sort of realized there was a bunch of things happening, and then I realized I could put certain documents into play, a document that has disclaimers, testifications, and advocations, and some people would rather the disclaimers and advocations. There's a bit of an unfair perception in regards to certain testifications. They're there to protect. They're there to let know. Some people do it in a certain kind of fashion where it says, like, listen, this was the agreement. This was the agreement in regards to certain things. You know what I'm talking about. This is the real true. And there is a thing like that. Some people call it an agreement or an agreement, what have you call that. Some people use that as that sort of thing. And I think it's partially a part of that. And partially a part of what? Well, partially a part of defense, keeping people safe. It was one of the things I went to after, after whatever the heck happened. I can't even fully remember. I don't fully remember. No, I can fully remember. I don't fully remember. That's the difference. You understand that? Anyway, within the confines of certain spirit trying to get me to be a bit erratic and upset, I feel like there is also indecency in regards to it. Light, far light, setting them, it's guys needing, like, can you display the reasons why not to make, erraticness and upsetness, have happened in regards to certain processes, especially ones that are, supposedly turbulent, the way my spirit guides indicated. I'm advocating for the arguers that makes guys needed to receive the resources and support that makes guys needed the way it makes guys needed. A bit of a difference. There is. There's one to make definitely a difference there. Anyhow, within the confines of that sort of thing, you could put a document into play, and all of a sudden, you could, create things with it. So I started noticing that there's content experiences within movies. Reading whole books in other dimensions while watching the movies, seeing poster displays of certain kind of movies, other dimensional sort of games in regards to some of this stuff, different kinds of things that exist alongside certain movies that you do in the other dimensional, being able to live life. Imagine being able to live lives, movie lives, things like that. Being able to, like, you watch Die Hard 1 and you get to play, you get to be John McClane. This is the truth of it. There is things like that. Now, imagine coming up with a document in the physical, one of the few physicals on this physical planet Earth, doing this, coming up with disclaimers, testifications, and advocations. It's fine, small, does the way his main spirit guides indicated, to facilitate content experiences alongside physical movies and existences that are happening. That's partially why, but that sort of stuff, it's a gold mine, folks. It really is. It helps and it protects. And I understand what's some of the issues with it. Economic, but the thing is that he did feng shui the way his main spirit guides indicated, and the economics is in it. And this is the truth of it. Yeah, the updated disclaimers do have it in there, and the applications, for the most part, do have it in there. The new ones do. And the testifications, I think they do too as well, but there's enough wordings within the testifications themselves and information that says, my main spirit guide's information regarding this takes precedence. I mean, there's a large chunk of the disclaimers, which is basically reiterating that, in multiple kinds of manners to a certain extent. Some of it, Anyhow, that's one of the things. But what I'm trying to say is that sort of stuff can help, and I understand that it's some spirit kind of say, well, you still have to be careful in regards to that sort of thing. Yes, but I still think that creating that sort of stuff can help. It can It can help a lot of different things. What if there was a certain kind of let know in certain dimensional existences? What if there's dimensional existences that could communicate? And we're like, listen, these ones right here, there's a couple of movies you could just do. Heck, do like 2, 3, 4, 5 documents. All of a sudden, heck that, yeah, if you do 5 a piece, and it's just like, and it's still done the way your main spirit guides indicate. You only want it to be done the way your main spirit guides indicate, or your main camp, main guides, whatever you do it, the way you do it that way, it's still only supposed to be done that way, and it does matter. Now, this sort of thing where it's like, okay, well, it's only supposed to be done the way your main spirit guides indicated, but is it done that way, and what is the sort of impact in regards to that? That matters greatly. Just because we think or say that it's only supposed to be done the way our main guides indicated doesn't mean that it doesn't matter. It matters greatly. What can we do in regards to that? Multiple different kinds of advocations, ripple effect advocations, conflict management advocations. There's other ways too, creativity, coming up with different ways to do it, storytelling, yeah, that was one of the ways. I just didn't really have a story to be able to let know of, to a certain degree. Well, no, I'm not saying that, but that's a long story, Bub. It's gonna be there for like 3-4 hours, and then we're like, what do I say now? I don't know. Anyway, not really. Anyway, it's that sort of thing where I started to realize that certain things were being enacted and created behind the scenes in regards to some of the implementations pertaining to some of the documents in regards to that sort of stuff. So, for example, what I started to realize, well, for example, you put in an advocation for, content experiences pertaining to wargaming commentary. I and others to find Spirit Guides are advocating for wargaming commentary and others to find Spirit Guides that guys needed content experiences that guys needed to be protected, defended, and healed, as well as etc. to find Spirit Guides. So guys needed thousands, potentially millions of people see that advocation and the ripple effect that happens because of it. One action could lead to a myriad of different things. And if you attach bad things to it to have that happen and put people in shitty circumstances, then that potentially, can make it worse. Yeah, but you don't necessarily want to do that by way of, the ripple and impact of that sort of thing. Yeah, cover within the confines of it, somewhat decent, but is there always? Has there always been? And to a certain extent in regards to defending, how is it said that they always have to do that? Why does, there's that sort of thing where it's like, yeah, but people do defend themselves to a certain extent. You can't expect people not to defend themselves to try and make sure that people are safe. No, I and others from Spirit Guides are advocating for the gods that Spirit Guides need to be able to have access to those that Spirit Guides indicate the way Spirit Guides indicate. No, it's the problem with it. No. Oh, whatever then. And that was why. Well, light forward, light setting it, guys need light save those whom we just need the way we just needed. Oh, because that's a part of it. Certain spirits want to talk about it. There's another issue going on behind the scenes at times, and it's difficult to talk about it fully. Some of it has to do with dimensional existences. Yeah, they bring up some of the hardcore stuff to say as to why it is that is, but that's really it, All right, fine. At times you put me in the middle of it, and you know it. Well, whatever then. What do you think half this argument bullshit was all about, I mean, that was partially what was uncovered in regards to 2018, 2019. Not to say that it wasn't already uncovered really back then, 2016, 2017. Because it was. I mean, that was also it. It was things like that where it's like, well, wait, I mean, that was half the thing of it. Was that he'd call it out and then he'd be sitting there chirping people out about it. That was also it. And I'm advocating for reputational defense regarding those who guys indicate pertaining to my past process, the way my Spirit Guides indicated. With that being said, I feel like that is a decent and that it can help. There's certain spirits who like to promote certain kinds of immorality. Imagine being able to facilitate violent video games and being able to stave for who you are today, being able to still be able to rep, being able to still be who you want to be. I feel like there is ways and technology to be able to implement that. If that technology is targeted to a certain extent and outlawed, then, obviously it's going to be more difficult. Why would that be, to have happen, It's at times it can be, and also not. I don't think it's so simple as that. I don't think it's so simple that certain spirits don't want spirits to be able to promote certain kinds of immorality. I don't think, it's about, certain kinds of power struggle. Maybe it's also about survival. Maybe it's about legacy. Maybe it is about that sort of stuff. Creation support. Why is, that's one of those things. Goes to a certain spot, but I'm wondering if it really is. Because at times they've insinuated that. And I don't know. At times I've thought about it, but at times I look at it, I'm like, I'm wondering, I don't know. It's that origin, end of the line sort of thing. When you go high up within the echelons of higher realms and even middle realms, what does it look like, and why is certain existences put into play? Why is there certain kinds of different kinds of activity, different kinds of laws clashing, overlapping dimensions, that sort of stuff? And it's a question and a half, and I don't know if I want to talk about that really, but. Cities of likes, infrastructure of likes and dislikes. I'm asking for the likes, dislikes, and infrastructures regarding that sort of thing to be protected, defended, and healed, as well as etc. Defined by means of guides, by means guys needed. No. Oh, I feel okay. Anyway, memory, glassware places. I'm adding for the glassware places that means has needed to be protected. Means has needed. There's this sort of crystal kind of feeling that I can feel at times, a certain kind of psychic stimuli, and I'm advocating for it feels like almost like a certain kind of glass. And I'm advocating for what means has needed regarding them, though. Means has needed. You don't know how it works. You'd be less inclined. I'm not being for what means has needed regarding those who means has needed, who means has needed. Anyway, 18th. Yeah, Xanthray. Yeah, that was one of those days where it felt like a forefront of certain kind of life. You have certain kind of live dimensional existences that are even. Imagine as a physical, a dimensional existence is created. Imagine in the physical, and you're able to see it, and you're able to incarnate into it. Imagine that you're like on a matrix kind of bed, and you're plugged into some sort of wire, and then for like a year, you're in that dimensional existence, and when you get back, you're like a year older in the physical, but then you lived like 50 years in that dimensional existence that you're able to see. Imagine you die. Well, as a physical, and there's similar things like that. But imagine that there's incarnations within incarnations within incarnations, multiple kinds. So you think about imagine if you're able to have multiple kinds of incarnations at once. Imagine that you're able to see multiple different kinds of incarnations, where you're able to incarnate into two things at once and be able to experience those lives in a certain kind of way. For some, maybe one at a time. For others, one at the same time. There might be other dimensional lives and existences that exist that are experiencing multiple kinds of life. Your might be one of them. How cool is that your light selves might be able to experience multiple kinds of lives at once? I am advocating for incarnation to be protected the way he says needed. I'm advocating for incarnation to be protected the way he says needed. That's what they said. Why don't you say what you need to? Well, we need to talk about something, don't we? Isn't this what it's supposed to be? Is this the end of it then? Sorry, I was open channeling spirit who needed to say what they needed to say there, I feel, to a certain extent. So yeah, multiple kinds of dimensional existences. Now, it's how cool is that there could be multiple kinds of incarnational existences at once, So, I mean, within the confines of these live existences and multiple kinds of live existences, imagine that there's another live being out there that is experiencing the live. Imagine that you could go into certain dimensional existences but still be in the live when you incarnate. We talk about like being in the Matrix kind of chair. Well, imagine being awake in the Matrix chair while experiencing multiple kinds of life. Imagine having a little HUD screen on your, like what we see here. Imagine, you've seen video games, right? They got the ammo count in the corner there. They got, you know, that sort of stuff. Well, imagine right in the corner here, you got like a little screen of what somebody else is seeing, and then over here you got another screen of what someone else is seeing. And these two lives are you got two lives. You're able to see them. They're experiencing certain kinds of things. I imagine the HUD setup pertaining to Alex James Hislop and others from Answer Guides to be what means you guys indicated, the way means you guys indicated, light, power, light, setting what means you guys indicated, light, do what means you guys indicated regarding my HUD, the way means you guys indicated. Imagine in other dimensions that we have multiple, we're able to see multiple things while we look through, you know, that sort of stuff. Like multiple kinds here. Like that would be why now. Sorry, clarifications. I do hand signs at times, and it's all decent stuff. But yeah, and yeah, so you can see multiple lives within your HUD, and imagine that one of the beings behind the scenes, your light self, you have another dimensional selves and things like that. Imagine if one of their HUDs is what you're experiencing in the live. How cool is that? And then rippled. So there might be like different kinds of like rippled lives like that. And it becomes like, yeah, there is that sort of thing where it's like light rights and other setting rights, you know, other dimensional existence rights, where it's like all of a sudden we don't want the light to intervene in regards to certain things, you know, stuff like that. At the same time, there is that sort of thing where, you know, people need to be protected and defended to a certain extent, in a certain kind of way. But I also feel a certain way about it regarding myself. I mean, that's also it. Okay, then. That was also it today. What they're saying. That's the case of it. No, belief is okay. Okay. Anyhow, so these live existences. Now, so imagine that your far light self. Imagine that there's certain kinds of feelings that can happen in regards to you. There's a certain kind of thing where like you feel like something is put in front of you, where there's like a pathway, and it feels like in a heightened way, where like, whoa, there is somebody like I know that I know that I'm a certain kind of live existence, but there's like this like behind the scenes dimensional self. If he aligns with you, you can feel it. Like you can feel like, wow, this is in the live, you know. And at times I felt that on me, and it's been like, whoa. I mean, it's almost like that sort of thing where it's like, imagine if you were living your incarnation that had um, it already existed. Imagine if you could incarnate into certain kinds of life track that was already pre-recorded in a certain kind of way. So in a certain way, we could look at it almost as a certain kind of video game, but different kind. Like, I mean, there's pain and you know, it seems real, right? There's a reality to it. It's a realism kind of aspect to it. I'm not going to say there isn't a story involved, but it is one of those things where you know, what we consider to be live reality to someone else might seem more video game like, and that sort of thing. Um, oh my God, what are the Grimm's? You know, the Grimm setting must look, you know, it must be, you know, holy. And I know I'm not laughing. It really is. It's got to be, I bet you it's grim. Um, and yeah, so, you know, and I have felt it, you know, happen to me, which it tells me something. Imagine if you're in the way time works. Imagine 2 points in time. Imagine you could incarnate into something, and you could see that being and interact with that being at times. Imagine being able to interact with a being that you're incarnate into. Um, so, like, imagine as you look at it on your HUD, you're able to see his viewpoint, but you're also interacting with his chakra in another dimension. You know, something like that. You know, that's really cool. But you imagine you're able to sort of, you know, interact. I'm being suppressed on my memory center and cognitive here, so I don't really get the point out. But it doesn't matter. They did not like that. You know? So imagine, oh, they're surprising. I think it's cool stuff, though. Different kinds of interactions with dimensional existences. And it really does. It's one of those things that if we were to understand that potentially exists, I think we would be, that other dimensional selves are around, that they have been around, that they, for some, not for all, potentially, and the skin that makes us need to be protected. Anyway, and yeah, so you imagine that from one point in time into the next, that as you live your life in another dimension, that time might work differently in another dimension. So when you incarnate in here, in front of the scene, so there's one lines here and then lines forward, and you incarnate in, and that time feels differently. So when you're incarnate into a body in front of the scenes, and they experience 1 minute, you potentially experience like, if you're in the light, potentially like a year. It depends on the, imagine if you were able to go into different time setups, imagine things like that. Imagine you're able to experience different kinds of time too. And I'm advocating for the psychics and spiritualists that means guys indicated to be situated and protected the way means guys indicated angels. That means you guys indicated do it. Means you guys indicated the way means guys indicated. I and others, divine means spirit guides are advocating for those that means you guys indicated to do what means you guys indicated the way means you guys indicated. And so you experience time in a different way. Imagine that the in front of the scenes could be placed though in a certain kind of area, in a certain kind of way in regards to time, where all of a sudden that you're behind the scenes could interact with him in ways where you'd have to wait to get in the future to be able to interact with him. So it's that sort of thing where it's like your dimensional selves, behind the scenes in a certain kind of way. Imagine that they're aware and can see your HUD on the corner of the screen and see what you're experiencing in a certain kind of way for what's acceptable. And I don't know how that, what happens when the time variable, starts to be interjected. But if you got placed in a certain kind of way and your behind the scenes person had to wait, imagine millions of years or thousands of years to be able to see you and interact with you again. I'm sorry, I'm advocating for resources and help. I'm advocating for time to be set in regards to Alex James Hislop and others from Mr. Guides the way Mr. Guides indicated. And that one advocation mattered greatly. This is an open channeling spirit saying this, the way Mr. Guides indicated. I'm advocating for those guys that Mr. Guides indicated, the spirits that Mr. Guides indicated pertaining to this market advocation, etc. From Mr. Guides the way Mr. Guides indicated. But to be protected, the way Mr. Guides indicated. And so imagine that these live perspectives, we're talking about recordings. We talk about that sort of thing where, imagine if there was an opposite one where your, dimensional self could be in the future in a certain kind of way and could interact with you, even if they were in the future. Imagine if there was a no time variable where they could experience no time. Remember, there's been near-death experience researchers. It's like, it felt like there was no time. Like they've experienced that. And they've also experienced both. They've also said that there was, I think, certain time variables there too. They haven't noticed that sort of thing yet. And in regards to certain ways. So it's also proven in regards to afterlife research in a certain kind of way. There is corroboration to a certain extent. So imagine that in the future, imagine that they already lived some of this life to a certain extent. Now imagine that the life track, we talked about those life tracks already, that their life track, imagine if the life was pre-recorded and then we jump into the bodies and someone says to you like, hey, I lived this life like 10,000 years ago or 100,000 years ago or a billion years ago or whatever it was, 2019 happened like 100,000 years for us and we're watching it from the future and you might be on a recorded track. You might be living a track. Imagine if there was like multiple kinds of that, like in different kinds of ways too, like different kinds of like dimensional setups. So there's like different kinds of like, it's a different way that the shape in how it looks must look like intricate. It must look really intricate. So it's one of those that's like, whoa, what does that mean now? I mean, it adds more layers to it in a certain kind of way that can be scary and complicated to a certain extent. But, it's one of those things that's like, yeah, I mean, that's to a far relay being, they might be able to look at it and say, yep, it looks like something. That's for someone else, it might be a little bit more difficult to be able to comprehend. I might not even be able to call the shape a name. I'd have to have, for some, it wouldn't do it justice. It'd be like, you know, someone trying to describe something that even a photo wouldn't be able to fully, you know, portray what it was, let alone, you know, just description of your words. So, you know, but it is one of those things that's not necessarily beyond comprehension. I don't know if it's one of those things that you'd look at and be like, it's so beautiful that you just want to look at it all day. But imagine that within that sort of existence, where when you're living your life in this, you know, let's say these lives, these incarnations, you know, and that it is a pre-recorded track, but that we can affect change with on the life track itself, and have affected change. And then when there's like certain kinds of things that happen sometimes, you know, like you know, there's the claw, you know, that sort of thing, you know. But I know that for some it's something different. The claw. And all of a sudden it's that sort of thing where, you know, the sort of, you know, caretakers of the existence itself can kind of like move you and kind of put you in a certain kind of area, throw you in a, you know, in a certain spot, just in case. I mean, you know, because in another dimensional sort of way, you might be impacting change in such a great way, or in such a, you know, supposedly great way, that, you know, maybe they need to take you and de-accelerate the process to a certain extent. Put the wheels on that ish, you know, let the rubber do its thing. And yeah, but, you know, imagine, but it's more than that too. So as we were saying, yeah, call word. With that being said, so imagine your future self being able to interact with you in a certain kind of way. And that while you're living your life in this, you know, what you seemingly feel like is live experience, that there is other live experiences that when they align with you as a psychic mediums would be able to feel like, whoa, it's like clarity, super focus, a certain kind of, you know, gravity to the situation. And it's almost like that future self is interacting with you in a certain kind of way, that those futures that happen, they kind of come around. You can see what's going on, what's happening. You've got our attention, good sir, and all of a sudden that live experience comes into your vicinity, you know, in multiple ways. Could be the past too. There is a past one as well. And they're like, for hey, don't even read it. You know, imagine for past process and future process in regards to Alex James Hislop and others, for guys to be protected, the way it's guys indicated. And so there is pinnacles of lives, but don't feel like, you know, just because you didn't, you know, hit that marker doesn't mean that people aren't seeing. Doesn't mean that people aren't paying attention. Doesn't mean that you're not important, because you potentially are, and potentially doesn't necessarily have to be. You don't have to be important if you don't want to be. There is that sort of thing. But I would say, and, you know, I'm advocating for the mind realms and Koran realm areas that makes us need to be protected. The way makes need. I'm advocating for, you know, the translations regarding Alex James Hislop and others from Instagram pertaining to this Alex James Hislop diary entry that makes us need it to be displayed by Instagram. The way makes us need. I'm advocating for those incarnations that makes us need, and the recharging of incarnations to be set the way makes us need. I'm advocating for the creation of bodies, atmospherics, existences that remains for guides indicated. The way it's indicated, I'm asking for monetary and in creation support in regards to those that means indicated, the way it's indicated, but I am advocating for supplies in regards to the incarnation spirits and beings that means indicated, the way it's indicated. Advocating for, if possible, a quick, you know, yeah, if maybe, I don't know. I'm going with what makes guys indicated. Whatever. I'm advocating for the implementation pertaining to the support works and frameworks in regards to the sunset grow moments that makes us indicated, the way makes us indicated. So as outro, you know, I have outro moments, you know, in regards to certain things, and it's this sort of, you know, throw up kind of displays and things like that in regards to certain kind of music and stuff like that. You know, just as that, I have sunset grow moments. It's this certain kind of, you know, roll up your sleeves and, you know, try to help out. You ever have a certain kind of family meeting, and then at the end of it, you kind of just like, you know, wash the dishes, kind of things like that, kind of do certain things. Well, there's kind of certain kind of things that you can say within your life where you're like, you know, I might want to, you know, play the saxophone in a certain kind of way for certain kind of charities. And all of a sudden it's like you become like this, you become this. Well, it could be one of them if you want to do that. Sure, I mean there is things like that. Sure, there's benefits and stuff like that. But other people are looking for. I think well, some are looking for a little bit more. But imagine if it was a really famous saxophone player. I mean, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, well, never mind. I mean, this is the case of this. And that's what's cool about it is that within the moment, you could have a certain life while talking about that. And you could become a famous saxophone player while you're talking about, if you wanted to play a saxophone, for a charity event, and then just bring it up, and then boom, you're a great, saxophone player. And the dude's just like, whoa, yeah, like this is awesome. I'm advocating for what Mates Guys indicated regarding life, the way Mates Guys indicated. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. They've also insinuated stuff at times in regards to myself, and I'm advocating for the velvet water that Mates Guys indicated to be implemented in regards to 14 Franklin Beach Road, the way Mates Guys indicated. I'm advocating for help and protection, etc. in regards to water, the way Mates Guys indicated. The way Mates Guys indicated. And it's that sort of thing where imagine if there's thousands, a lot of incarnations being lived as you live life. And the sadness in that, there's such a sadness, isn't there? Because I don't is there a desensitization that happens? Like, because I know my feeling on it. I'm feeling this live perspective, and I'm not saying that that's what's happening, but there is setups like that at times, and it's heavy. It's way too heavy for me. No, I want what Mates Guys indicated. I choose what Mates Guys indicated. You don't know why they chose that. No, I chose what Mates Guys indicated, and that's the case of it. Light, forward light, setting the Mates Guys indicated light, that's going to count to, yeah. I get compensation for both. The way Mates Guys indicated, in regards to what Mates Guys indicated, the way Mates Guys indicated, and doing that sort of catch, that sort of thing where it's like, oh, but we never hurt you actually, and then it's like, okay, well, what was it all? Was it all just fake? Was it all just, a joke? What if there's existences like that? Well, then there might. Well, how am I supposed to believe you? What if it was all? Huh? Imagine. So somebody's looking around now wondering why the hell we didn't go that road. Because there always is one dude standing there thinking that what the hell we didn't go there. Who do you think creates that sort of stuff? Who the hell's at half the time when they're shaking their fists saying long game play, the play must be played. You don't know why. Now you know why. For freak's sake. I'm not saying it's the same people over and over again. I'm saying that there is people seeing, there is people knowing, and there's a reason why people go certain routes. You're just sucking up to the long game. Yeah. Yeah, I was. Long game. It's that sort of thing where certain spirits, beings, etc. environments guides are working on smaller issues to a certain extent, but also playing it in a certain way where somebody doesn't want, somebody looking like the hero instead of trying to get them hurt. There we go. That's a long game play, in regards to certain spirits working against. Yeah, that sort of thing. It's like, yeah. That makes sense. Well, you don't know why. Yeah, Xanthray. But this one about Xanthray was sort of really important. Let me read the last page. I was fairly bad today. So yeah, I want to just quit. Another ploy to get me to do erotic behavior, lash out, which I did. By the end of it, I created a term called Xanthray, which is fully defined by me, implementing upon certain spirit groups. I feel like a certain kind of life of my life has been around a wavelength. It's a certain kind of wavelength. Yeah, it's a certain kind of wavelength. This is the real thing of this. You don't know why. That was also why. Is that how you felt about it? No. It's not how I felt about it. I am advocating for reputational defense regarding my eyes and others' women's rights. Ways you guys need it. I'm advocating for my body set up to be what made you guys need the ways you guys need it. I have multiple disclaimers in regards to my body systems and things like that. Multiple documents. It does exist. Because that's why now. We never wanted to go there for a reason. It's a reason. And you don't like it for a reason. Yeah, I felt like that certain lie was around me on the 18th. The 19th, energies and high spirits of the events of yesterday. If there's some stuff happening, some let knows. There might be certain kind of Hollywood types that are following a certain kind of suit. Yeah, there was a certain kind of let know in regards to certain things that were happening. There was ideas. There was a big idea thing in regards to certain ideas that I was getting, and a certain kind of situating in regards to it, to a certain extent, certain kind of ideas. And I've noticed there is such a thing as idea beings. Imagine a certain kind of head that's sort of like clear and it has like a bunch of ideas in it, like a gumball machine, things like that. Kind of interesting. Yeah, well, it does remind me of it. And it kind of reminds me of, like, someone grabbing a certain kind of idea and then, putting it in the head area. I mean, at times I've felt, thoughts pop up. It's that let know communication at times. Sometimes certain spirits going around. There is that sort of thing. It does happen. For what's acceptable. Not always in a certain kind of process. And that's true. I'm adding for the psychics that means you guys needed to be safeguarded from Alex James Hislop the way it means you guys indicated. I'm advocating for the big psychic beings that means you guys indicated to be protected the way it means you guys indicated. It just always sound funny. Certain kind of like to start to understand why certain things happen as well as certain things being fixed on your end. Something to do with breathing. Yeah, dimensional breathing. There was that breath of life kind of thing, but also that kind of breathing thing where you breathe in whole dimensions. There is that sort of stuff. It's like, imagine your whole body's overlapping a certain kind of dimensional existence. That really does matter. I mean, I felt my chakras at times unpack a whole goddamn picnic blanket, a dimensional blanket. I mean, it really does. It has felt like that at times, and it's that the clown thing pulling out the cloth, tied together out of their hand. Well, imagine that being pulled out of your center chest chakra. Imagine that, and I'm able to feel my chakras as a psychic, but it is scary stuff. Yeah, but I think there was war going on the 18th and 19th. I think there's war at times been going on. Dimensional existences, again, overlapping. There is society that's, well, we take a look at 200 or 300 years ago on this physical planet Earth, and there was warfare at times to a certain extent. It's not that unheard of. And I know that, but at times it is. There's a mentality. And it exists, and it should not go away. I'm advocating for the science beings that you guys indicated to be protected. The way you guys indicated, I'm advocating for the perceptions and energies in regards to humans on this physical planet Earth and others, the animal kingdoms, as well as others on this physical planet Earth, to be protected. The way you guys indicated, especially insects. They shouldn't be just fodder, man. No way. It should be treated with care and kindness, and at times physical humans on this physical planet Earth haven't. They don't know. They don't fully understand in regards to it, and they should know. They should understand. Being able to have access to those kind of energies that says, hey, you know what? Not that it says that it's brimstone or bad, but that says, like, that can help them know how they want to necessarily feel about it. If there's a large percentage, 80 to 90% of physical humans on this physical planet Earth, they're like, no, I'd rather not be torturing insects to a certain extent. And that tells you something. That's a tell right there. It's a ballpark estimate, but I still think it's close to the truth. Anyway, I'm asking for truth to be protected, which as indicated. What else was there? Yeah, animals, psychic communities, life support, time frames, journey merchants, water, fans, war, frictions, truth. And that was some of the themes for the 19th, 20th. Not the usual, yeah. Chill out today was me sort of relaxing. Sunday, I take the day off. It was the themes, memory, psychological defense. I did put psychology defense. That's decent, but it was actually psychological defense. But that both works. Psychology defense. Oh, I think that one's good too. Recreation, intimacy, gaming, emotions. That was some of it. Everyone acting a little too nice. Yeah, it was that sort of thing where I realized that, wait a second, I'd put certain advocations in play in regards to certain planet Earth and things of that nature. Because there was that let know where it's like certain anti-camps, well, not just anti-camps, but certain spirits working against at times. Certain kind of brimstone culture kind of packed up and left, and it was like, okay, so we got to hold it down now to a certain extent. Well, I don't know, and I don't know why, by way of whatever it was. There's multiple things like that. There might be people who are just like, holding it down to a certain degree versus some things. There might be that. But there might also not be. It depends on what it is. Depends on who you're talking about. With that being said, it was like, okay, so what do we do now? Like, okay, well, one of the things I did was to put a couple of applications in play and villain hirings. There's certain villains out there, but you can do some hirings, and it's that sort of thing where it's like, okay, there might be a bigger villain I hire above, in a karmic sort of way, or in a, in a dimensional sort of way, in multiple kinds of ways. There might be multiple other things at play, not just about, spirit strong arming attacking in regards to it. There might be a certain kind of quota, a certain kind of resource. And again, we say, well, creation support. Well, yeah, but, that's also it. I think they have at times and do. There might be a certain quota to be met. I don't know. There might be that sort of thing too. There's been multiple sort of, origin theories in regards to this place. And, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. Well, okay. What if that was the case of it? No. Get it? I don't know, man. You know how much we had to sort out when it happened? We're getting better, right? You seem to be there, Alex. No. No. How can you expect them not to cry? Pretty much. So, I kind of felt like there was a bit of a targeting in regards to being able to hold it down. Now, the sort of thing where anti-camps get, and have to, we have to sort of facilitate our own sort of anti-camps at times. And so one of the things I did day before, was that sort of displays, informational displays, and also villain hiring, that sort of thing. And I am advocating for the villains that these guys need to receive the monetaries that these guys need and access that these guys need, the ways guys need. I remember where the self-facilitation pertained to conflict management that these guys needed, and the styles that these guys needed to be protected, the way these guys needed. I'm advocating for communication to be protected, the way these guys indicated. I'm advocating for Bogart, Anna Hislop, Alan Hislop, Victoria Bell Hislop, and Fortune Frankly Betrothed to be protected, the way my answer guides indicated. I'm advocating for Georgina to be protected, the way he says indicated. I'm advocating for Canada to be protected, the way he says indicated. I'm advocating for Earth to be protected, and the solar system to be protected. I'm advocating for Lar and Sol, as well as Luna, to be protected, the way he says indicated. Nothing wrong with doing applications in regards to one of your settings. I'm advocating for my settings that means you guys need to be protected. The way you guys need. What are the other dimensional equivalents of those that I just listed? That means you guys need in regards to Alex James Hislop and others from Mr. Guides, I and others from Mr. Guides are advocating for healing, protection, defense, etc. To Mr. Guides, the way you guys need. Oh, Jesus. In regards to them specifically, is how the information was meant. What do you guys need? It'd be like that in another dimensional existence, overlapping Earth. And it's like, what do they call there? Is he a part of Earth? Can he be part of Earth? That's one of those things. Can he be part of Earth? Can he, You don't know why. Can he be part of Earth? It's one of those, man. Help, 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 help. I'm advocating for the animals to be protected the way you guys indicated. I feel like this has been one of those weeks. I'm advocating for the Lion King that made you guys indicated to be protected the way you guys indicated. No, it's not meant like that. It's just that's why I felt like doing it. It had nothing to do with it. It shouldn't take away from any compensation that makes you guys needed for the exception of what makes you guys need the way you guys need. Whatever. I don't know why that was. And of course today, this one's yeah, I woke up really tired today. What I've been referred to as my sleep energy body felt pierced, in an extreme way. I couldn't really even get up. I was just, my energy levels were quite low, and I could feel spirits healing some of it and doing certain medical on the bodies at times. I feel like some of the medical healers were busy, and they were waiting for others. I'm having for my beds. That I'm for the beds that makes us needed in regards to Fortune Frankly Betrothed, and the healing areas that makes us needed pertaining to Fortune Frankly Betrothed to be protected. When makes us needed life hour light setting that makes us needed light do it. Makes us needed regarding the facilitation of transportation in regards to Fortune Frankly Betrothed, as well as what remains for guys needed in regards to those that remains guys needed the way makes us needed for access, entrances, exits, etc. Departments for guys in regards to Fortune Frankly Betrothed and Frankly Betrothed that remains for guys needed. to be protected, defended, and healed. This was accepted by Mr. Guides and monitored by those whom Mr. Guides needed. I am advocating for what Mr. Guides indicated in regards to. You don't know why that is. That's what they said. So I'm guessing that it wasn't an attack and harm like it was what you insinuated here, because there was another one let know of it. Okay, so what's the let know now, Alex? Do you remember the date? Not fully. Late August. Late August 2018. Late August 2018. Okay. You don't know why that is. Okay, I do remember. That's what they said. So what if we're the bad guys now? What if we all just know it and that's the case? I mean, no, I'm not the bad guy here because that's how you feel here, because a bunch of people are being betrayed. This is the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. This is the kind of crap. Oh, this is the freaking heck. God, so at what point? I'm sick of this, man. Done with it, man. There's some spirits who are done, who are never going to go turn around, never going to turn around. When this is done, when this ending is over, they are done. You don't know why. Anyway, I and others from Mainstream Guides are advocating for what Mainstream Guides chose for us to advocate in regards to this. Alex James Hislop, diary entry, January 21st, 2019, the way Mainstream Guides indicated.